The man slammed the silver coins onto the tavern table and demanded another drink. The bartender picked one up, turned it in the candlelight, and suddenly went quiet. Because the money in his hand looked real, felt real. But somewhere deep down, he knew something was wrong. In 1785, the United States was barely holding itself together. The Revolutionary War had ended only 2 years earlier. The British were gone. The colonies had won. On paper, America was finally free. But freedom came with a terrifying problem. The new nation was broke. There was no strong federal government yet, no national bank, no stable economy. Every state printed its own paper money. Different coins from different countries circulated through the streets. Spanish silver, British pounds, French coins, state-issued notes, handwritten certificates, all mixed together in pockets and cash boxes across the young republic. And hidden inside that confusion was a disaster almost nobody saw coming: counterfeiters. Not petty thieves making fake bills in dark alleys. Entire underground networks. Skilled engravers. Corrupt printers. Smugglers. Tavern owners. Merchants. Sailors. Criminal gangs moving fake money from city to city before anyone could trace it. By 1785, counterfeit currency was spreading through America like a disease. And the worst part? Almost nobody knew which money was real anymore. In Philadelphia, merchants began refusing certain notes altogether. In New York, shopkeepers held candles behind paper bills just to inspect them before accepting payment. Farmers arriving at market with weeks of hard-earned produce suddenly discovered their money was worthless. Trust was collapsing. And when trust collapses, economies die. At first, many Americans blamed ordinary criminals. But inside government offices, another fear slowly began to grow. What if this wasn't random? What if someone was deliberately trying to destroy the American economy before the country could stabilize? The idea sounded paranoid, until investigators started noticing patterns. The fake notes were becoming better, much better. Some counterfeit bills were nearly impossible to detect. The paper quality improved, the ink matched official currency. Even experienced traders struggled to tell the difference. Whoever was making them had access to professional printing equipment. That terrified officials. Because in 1785, advanced printing technology wasn't common. Producing convincing fake currency required skill, expensive tools, and organized distribution. This was no lone criminal. Someone powerful was behind it. And rumors spread fast. Some believed loyalist groups, still angry over the revolution, were secretly funding counterfeit operations to weaken the new republic from within. Others suspected British agents. After all, Britain had not exactly accepted American independence gracefully. British troops still occupied forts in parts of the Northwest Territory, despite the peace treaty. Tensions remained high. Trade disputes simmered constantly. Economic sabotage didn't sound impossible. And there was history behind the fear. During the Revolutionary War, both sides had weaponized currency. The British had been accused of flooding American markets with fake continental dollars to fuel inflation and destroy confidence in rebel money. Now Americans feared the war had never truly ended. It had simply changed forms. Inside government meetings, panic quietly spread. The Confederation Congress already struggled to pay debts from the Revolution. Soldiers demanded unpaid wages. Foreign creditors wanted repayment. States argued constantly with each other. The economy was fragile enough already. But counterfeit money threatened something even deeper than debt. It threatened belief itself. Because money only works when people trust it. The moment citizens stop believing paper has value, entire systems begin to crack. And signs of cracking were everywhere. In Boston, merchants started demanding payment in hard silver rather than paper notes. In rural towns, barter systems returned because people no longer trusted currency. Some businesses simply stopped accepting unfamiliar bills entirely. Imagine trying to build a nation while nobody trusts the money in their pockets. That was America in 1785. And then things became even stranger. Authorities began arresting counterfeiters, but the operations never stopped. Raids uncovered printing plates hidden beneath taverns. Secret presses operated in barns outside major cities. Smugglers carried fake notes along coastal trade routes, disguised inside shipments of tobacco and cloth. Yet every time officials shut down one network, another appeared. Bigger. Smarter. It was almost like cutting the head off a snake, only to watch two more grow back. One investigator reportedly described the situation as an invisible war against the nation's credit. And the invisible part was what frightened leaders most. Nobody knew how deep the networks went. Some counterfeiters bribed local officials. Others blended seamlessly into ordinary society. Printers who appeared respectable by day secretly produced fake notes at night. The line between legitimate business and organized fraud became dangerously thin. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans suffered the consequences. A farmer could spend months growing crops, only to be paid with worthless paper. A widow, selling household goods, might discover too late that her life savings were fake. Small businesses collapsed after unknowingly accepting counterfeit notes, and anger grew. People blamed merchants. Merchants blamed banks. States blamed each other. Citizens blamed the government. But the government barely had power to respond. Under the Articles of Confederation, the national government was weak. It lacked strong financial control. States operated almost independently. Coordinating investigations across state lines became painfully difficult. Counterfeiters exploited every weakness. If authorities cracked down in one state, operations simply shifted elsewhere. And because every state used different currencies, confusion became the perfect cover. The chaos reached a point where some Americans genuinely feared economic collapse. Not years later. Immediately. Because if trade stopped, cities starved. If confidence vanished, debts exploded. If people rejected paper money entirely, the fragile union itself could unravel. And in many ways, it almost did. Behind closed doors, some political leaders started reaching a dangerous conclusion. America needed a completely different financial system. The counterfeit crisis exposed something nobody wanted to admit publicly. The revolution had won independence, but not stability. Without centralized financial power, the country remained vulnerable. Weak governments attract predators, and predators had arrived. Men like Robert Morris, one of the nation's leading financial figures, warned repeatedly about the dangers of unstable currency and economic disorder. Others, including young political thinkers like Alexander Hamilton, closely watched the growing crisis unfold. Hamilton especially understood something many others missed. A nation cannot survive on ideals alone. It needs systems. Strong systems. Reliable systems. Because patriotism means nothing if your economy collapses. But convincing Americans of that was difficult. Many citizens feared centralized power. They had just fought a war against what they saw as tyranny. The idea of stronger federal financial control made some deeply uncomfortable. Yet every fake bill spreading through the streets strengthened the argument for change. Counterfeiters were exposing the weakness of the republic faster than politicians could fix it. And then came another terrifying realization. Counterfeit money didn't just hurt the economy. It damaged national identity. Think about it. America was still trying to define itself in 1785. The country barely existed as a unified nation. Citizens identified more with their states than with the United States itself. Now imagine living in that uncertainty while fake currency floods markets everywhere. How do people believe in a nation when they cannot even trust its money? That question haunted American leaders. Because beneath the financial panic was a deeper fear. Maybe the republic itself was too fragile to survive. History offered grim warnings. Nations had collapsed before from debt, inflation, corruption, and financial chaos. Revolutions often succeeded militarily, only to fail economically afterward. America could become another example, and foreign powers were watching closely. European governments doubted whether the United States could survive long-term. Some expected the states to fracture apart within years. Others believed economic instability would eventually force America back under foreign influence. Counterfeit networks only reinforced those fears. To outside observers, the young republic looked weak, divided, and vulnerable. Exactly the kind of nation criminals thrive inside. As investigations expanded, newspapers published alarming stories about fake notes appearing in nearly every major trade center. Public anxiety intensified. Some communities formed informal groups to identify counterfeit bills. Merchants shared handwritten guides explaining how to detect fakes. But counterfeiters adapted quickly. They changed designs, improved techniques, copied new notes almost immediately after states issued them. It became a race the government kept losing. And somewhere inside the chaos, another question quietly emerged. How many powerful people secretly benefited from the disorder? Because economic confusion creates opportunities. Smugglers profited. Speculators manipulated unstable markets. Corrupt traders exploited desperate citizens. Criminal enterprises expanded across state borders. For some, the collapse of trust was profitable. That made the crisis even harder to stop. By the mid-1780s, many Americans were exhausted. They had survived war expecting peace and stability. Instead, they entered a world filled with debt, uncertainty, and financial deception. The dream of independence suddenly felt fragile, almost breakable. And perhaps that was the most dangerous part of all. Not the fake money itself, but the psychological damage it caused. Because once people stop trusting institutions, rebuilding that trust becomes incredibly difficult. The counterfeit crisis helped push America toward massive change in the years ahead. Stronger financial structures, centralized authority, national systems designed to stabilize the economy before chaos consumed it entirely. But in 1785, none of that was guaranteed. At the time, the future looked frighteningly uncertain. A nation born from revolution now faced an enemy without uniforms, without battlefields, and without mercy. An enemy hiding inside wallets, marketplaces, taverns, and trade routes. An enemy made of ink, paper, and fear. And for a young republic already struggling to survive, that may have been one of the most dangerous threats of all.